Hello.
That's YouTube or Bono?
Hello, hello?
Yeah.
What, YouTube?
No, YouTube.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
The song goes, hello, hello, YouTube.
I was very confused.
Is that U2 or Bono? Wait, is Bono the...
Bono is the lead singer of U2. I don't know if he's done any solo work.
What's the other one that's basically U2?
Coldplay?
No, Coldplay's different. Coldplay's worse.
I don't know then.
Is it Aerosmith?
No, it is definitely not Aerosmith.
There's some...
They were more like punk rock, not punk rock, hard rock, heavy metal, 80s band.
Heavy metal. Aerosmith was heavy metal.
I mean,
when we saw Tech Nine in concert, you heard heavy metal. One of the opening acts, remember?
Oh, no, but that's different.
Heavy metal.
But yeah, like 80s heavy metal, like Poison and
Pussy
Roses.
Music. That's what I call that. Pussy music.
Okay, well, I think you're wrong about that, but okay.
All right, well, listeners, let us know if heavy metal is Aerosmith. If you consider Aerosmith heavy metal. You know what? I'm hitting up Google, and I'm just going to search heavy metal bands.
Okay.
And if Aerosmith comes up as a suggestion...
Do I get a cookie?
Heavy, I will show you my dinghy.
You should just message one of our friends that's really into heavy metal and ask him.
Joel, we can message my friend Joel. All right, we got Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Motorhead, Slayer, Deep Purple, Pantera, Slipknot, Led Zeppelin, Korn, Motley Crue, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses.
See, I said Guns N' Roses, all right.
Okay, I don't even remember who you said now.
Poison.
No.
Aerosmith.
Aerosmith. Oh, I'm going that there's so many on here, and none of them are Aerosmith.
Sorry.
Celtic Frost is on here.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know who it is either. Nope, no Aerosmith.
All right, well.
So, you don't get to see my ding ever again.
Well, I don't think that's true, but okay.
Well, I am going to try my best. I'm gonna get,
yeah, you will make it like 10 minutes.
Chastity belt.
Chastity.
No, it's going to be chastity, and it's going to be a girl, and every time you try to get near her crotch, you're like, leave it alone. I'm chastity.
Okay, well, then we're going to get divorced.
Well, no, she's not going to see it either. It's going to be the back of her head.
It's still.
Oh, you're saying.
That's the deal breaker for me right there.
If I have if I have a girl guarding my ding-a-lingle, you will divorce me.
Yes. I'm going to stand by that statement.
What are the other ways, like, realistically, if I did something that you would divorce me?
If you were consistently lying to me, like, repeatedly, where it got to the point where I really felt like I couldn't trust you.
What's consistently? Like, just a whole bunch in a week? Or, like, we're talking, like, months and years?
I guess it depends on the severity of the lie. But if I would have to get to the point where I felt like I legitimately couldn't trust you, because if I can't forgive you and move on from that, then that's not fair to you either.
So if let's say I cheat on you and I say, look, I'm really sorry, I'm not going to do it again. You're going to stay with me. How many more times would I have to do it then?
Again, it would depend. Let
me write this down.
There's no hard and fast rules. You can't write it down because it depends on who the person is, how long it was,
Why would it depend on who the person was? The level of involvement is Chastity turned her head around. Boom, baby.
Okay, divorced.
That is so not
We've
fair.
already established Chastity being here as a deal breaker for me.
Oh my God. I love it when I... That is a dangerous voice. When I use my porn star girl voice, only bad things are said.
Well, then there you go. Way to stop yourself. Nicely done. Hurting me or hurting my kids, obviously, that would be
hurt, like physically.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
I mean, those are the things that I can think of where, like, that would absolutely be it. There couldn't be any sort of shades of gray in there.
I guess that's fair.
No. So what would you say? It's a long pause.
Well, because consistent lying, I mean, like you said, it really depends on what it is. I think if you cheated on me and you fell in love with that other person, you didn't feel like you loved me anymore, I would want a divorce. If you cheat on me, okay, like we've talked about this, okay, you're on a work trip and you've had something to drink and, it's been a long time since you've seen me, you hook up with somebody. I'm going to be mad, obviously. We'll have to work through it, but, I mean, I'm not going to divorce you over that. Shit like that happens. But if you fall in love with someone and it is built up, lasted a while, and you're like, I don't love you anymore. I'd like to love you again, so let's work on it. And I'd probably be like, hell no. And I'd jump on a bike and I'd ride away.
A bike, that's an interesting mode of transportation.
And then I'd say if you hurt me or the kids, but let's be honest, you can't hurt me.
Wow.
I'm a grown-ass man.
I'm a grown-ass woman.
Exactly.
I work out. I got muscles.
I mean, in fairness, I'm saying that you can't hurt me. And you said that that would be one of the reasons that we get a divorce. So you're admitting that I'm stronger than you.
No, I'm saying that I wouldn't necessarily fight back because that would not be my first instinct, would be to hurt you too.
We've never, ever, ever gotten close to a physical fight.
No,
ever.
not even
That is
close.
not our style.
No throwing of things, no slamming of doors.
And only a handful of times have we not slept in the same bed because of a fight.
Yeah,
Very rarely.
But yeah, I mean anything physical, punching wall, there's nothing even not directed towards each other. It is.
Nah.
We use our words.
Lame.
Sorry.
Although words can do real damage.
Are you Batman now?
No, I'm a deep boot. I'm Sebastian. And I'm Chastity.
Pulling out all the characters today.
I'll call you Chas. And I'll call you Sabby.
Okay. You said this is dangerous. Should I stop you now?
It depends. Do you want to hear an erotic novel?
Not really, no.
How you been? What you been up to?
Working from home.
Nerd.
Celebrating daughter's birthday.
Celebrating daughter's birthday. Not a nerd.
Yeah, turned 14, so she's getting all
You
grown
turned 14?
now. Obviously not.
You wish.
I mean, I did turn 14 once upon a time. Many, many moons ago.
Many, many moons ago.
And then attending protests for the Black Lives Matter movement. We've done a lot of that lately. That's been our big... With Corona going on, we've been really good about distancing, not getting out of the house, really keeping to ourselves. And so that's really been my only foray outside of the confines of our four walls.
Besides grocery shopping.
Yeah.
Which we got to do that.
Yeah.
Protests would be the only thing we've really gone on and done.
Yeah. And even then, with the mask, 6 feet away from everybody, really trying my best.
You're lying.
That is not. I've kept my mask on from the time we left the car.
Yeah, but you do not make an effort when we're at the protest. Stay 6 feet away from people.
Yes,
we literally one night locked arms in a giant circle with strangers.
Okay. One out of how many hours was I there, and how many hours did I stand further away from the rest of the crowd?
We stay in further away from the rest of the crowd because we have a. Yeah, I guess you're right. We do stand further away. But, I mean, don't act like that every single time I've been there, I've been proper.
With the exception of one really big moment where we were trying to make a statement with each other and build community, which I felt was worth the risk.
All right, and during that moment, COVID was like, oh, yeah, never mind.
I said I felt like it was worth the risk.
It's all worth the risk. No one's going to get COVID.
Yeah, except for the hundreds of thousands of people who have. Well, the millions of people who have, the hundreds of thousands who have died.
We are being safe, but honestly, we're not being as safe as Sarah's trying to make it sound.
Maybe you're not.
No, I'm not. And I should be, because I'm the diabetic one. But Sarah is better about the hand washing and stuff than I am. The protests have been going on since... 2 weeks yesterday?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks yesterday. Yesterday being Sunday. We're recording this on a Monday night. And I've gone to at least 8 or 9 of them.
Yeah,
a few
half.
less.
Yeah.
A few less than that because of, I don't know.
There was
different reasons.
Kid's birthday party, roller derby practice, a couple of different things.
Yeah, that's true. I went during the kid's birthday. What else you been up to? Anything cool?
I would not say anything cool. No, okay, this is not cool at all. This makes me really sound like a nerd, but I started one of those paint by numbers, and I'm super nerdy about it. And everybody who sees me do it gets all nerdy about it too, and stops and asks me what it is. And
again,
wants to see
why?
A picture.
One person stopped you.
Okay, that is not true. My mom asked me about it. Embry asked me about it. 2 of the girls at the birthday party asked me about it.
Oh, they did. I wasn't here. Well, I know that when I walk by you and you do it, I say, nerd!
Yeah, but you say it in a loving way.
I'm like, you need to get that off the table so I can build my Harry Potter Legos! Which is what I've been doing.
That's true.
Got the night bus, and I've got the stag, what is it? Patronus?
Patronus, yep.
Patronus. But I haven't built that one yet because I ran out of shelf space. Unfortunately.
So heartbroken because I love Harry Potter so much. and J.K. Rowling has just been making a fool of herself on social media.
Did you actually read them? I know you don't have a Twitter, or did you just hear people being mad?
I have seen people repost her Twitter comments.
But you haven't seen context of her whole conversation?
I have not seen context of her whole conversation. But
I'm not saying it's better, but I'm saying don't...
I'm not seeing context of the whole conversation. I don't follow her on any of the social media, so I've not seen any of the... I've just seen the posts that have been controversial. But I find it hard to understand what context those comments could have been said in that would have made me feel okay about them.
Oh, no, it's not better.
So,
as someone who is very active on... Well, not very active. I'm very active on reading Twitter. The issue is, and I will admit that transgender rights and transgenders in general is something I do not know enough about. Last time we were at the Pride parade in Atlanta, the only thing I brought back with me was reading material on understanding transgenders and stuff. It's something I cannot relate to. It is something I don't understand. It's something I can learn a lot more about. But sometimes, well, most of the time, you're stuck in one of those situations. Just shut up and listen or read and learn things. And J.K. Rowling does not take that route. She lives in the age of social media, and everyone is expecting you to have an opinion, and you need to state it constantly, even if you don't know everything you need to know. Sometimes you can just be quiet, just shut up and learn.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting that you were wrong. I've seen this a lot with not just individuals, but companies with the variety of sensitive issues that have come forward lately. And rather than just take a step back and say, you know what? I was wrong. I shouldn't have said it that way. I understand now that it is an offensive way to have phrased things. I understand that was an offensive thing to say. I'm going to take the time to educate myself more. I'm going to take that step back. But people get hyper defensive and won't concede that what they said or did might have been something that was wrong. And if the person who fits that category is finding it offensive and you respect that person and they're telling you they found it offensive, they found it offensive. Your justification doesn't matter. You know, you didn't mean it that way. You didn't think of it that way. That's fine. But it still was offensive to them. And they should be able to speak up and tell you, hey, if you really like me and appreciate me, that's not how I would want you to use those words. And you should be able to say, you know what? Thank you for that. I won't use that word again in the future.
I'll agree with that. But I will not agree with, like, I see it. The big ones I see from this Black Lives Matter stuff is like Roger Goodell of the NFL came right out and said that they treated the Colin Kaepernick thing wrong. Drew Brees made a comment about how it's still wrong to kneel during the national anthem. And both of these people have admitted they were wrong. But people really aren't that forgiving. If you've said something on social media or you as a company has said something and stood by it for even a tiny amount of time, like Drew Brees was like, one night, you don't get forgiven easily. People, I mean, that's why you see things like, somebody dug up something someone said on Twitter 8 years ago, and now it's going to ruin them now. I don't like that. I don't like that is what happens. I don't feel like just because you were called out on something and you apologize, that's bad. I think sometimes you need to be called out on it and realize that it's, like you said, like once you're told that it's hurting people, how you change after that moment. But generally speaking, in the world, it's considered not genuine if you have to be told you shouldn't have said it, and that's why it's a tough thing. So you should shut up if your opinion is not incredibly educated, and just listen. You don't always have to say things, because then when you do want to apologize and learn from it, like I think if J.K. Rowling now said, I was wrong, like just like you're saying, I don't think it's going to make a difference.
It might not make a difference for everyone, and I think that's a fair point. I think that a lot of people are hard to forgive. But from my own perspective, and this comes from a lot of life experiences of not being forgiving, totally being the wrong person and the wrong, totally being the defensive person and the one not willing to concede that I was wrong. So I'm certainly not saying that I'm coming from a place of perfection here. But for me...
Oh, hell no, you ain't, girl.
That would be, for me at this moment in my life right now, somebody acknowledging, you know what, I messed up. Thank you for pointing that out to me. In the future, I'm going to do better. I'm going to learn from this moment. That would mean a lot to me. And that's all I can speak to.
And I can speak to, especially because I have, and I joke about this with people, I can never run for a political office or anything because my past, I have said and done some horrible, horrible things in the name of what I thought was comedy and being rebellious. And I would not want to be judged on that because now I think I am great and mature, and my views are completely different than they were even 5 years ago. Like when people say, "Oh, you can't ever actually change someone's opinion. There's no reason to argue with them online." I don't agree with that at all. I have changed my opinion on a lot of things because I have seen arguments on Facebook. So maybe that's just me.
I think I think that you are special in terms of the fact that you are more from my experience, having been a school teacher and having worked with, now again, this is a very particular age group. I taught high school. But I could spend all year talking to a student and not be able to change their mind on something. They had their ideas formed in their head, and they weren't going to change. They were staunch in their beliefs.
But that's what teenagers do.
Again, and I'm saying that I think there's certainly something to be said for that age group. But I do think that there are some people who are more open to really listening than others. And I'm sure that comes from life experience. I'm sure that comes from a variety of things that has put them in that place. I'm not saying that, that some people are innately bad because they're really staunch in their opinions. But I think that it's something that comes when certain things happen in your life. Like if you have one experience that really changes your mind and opens your eyes on something, you're then able to go, what else have I been wrong about? Like you kind of need that one moment to sort of open the door for you. And then it makes you more willing to go, what else have I been so staunch in that I've sort of gotten that blindness where I've decided what the right answer is, and I'm only looking at the evidence that supports my opinion, and I'm excluding the evidence that in any way contradicts what it is that I'm thinking.
I like that. I think that's true.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely, scientifically, they've shown that there is a bias, and it's one of the things that you have to work really hard against, is that you have this sort of bias towards the conclusion that you're hoping to see or expecting to see, or you think that it should be, and it makes it very difficult for you to truly appreciate anything that contradicts that. And
I think, that's the main reason I don't like all the true crime stuff that you listen to. There's always that bias that, I don't know. But I would say, if you're someone who believes that people don't really change, look at a couple years ago when the Black Lives Matter thing actually came out. And now look at now, the entire world is not everyone in the entire world, but you can just look and see that the world is behind the Black Lives Matter movement now because people have learned more and they've changed and they've seen things that influence that opinion. So when you feel like, oh, I'm just responding to the same old arguments on Facebook, okay, maybe you're saying the same thing over and over again to one person who's not going to change that opinion, but think about the other people that are seeing those comments and the other people that are hearing your really, really good arguments. They're the ones that are getting influenced. It's not just that one person you're arguing in. So I am very, very pro. Keep arguing, keep fighting, keep repeating the same things. And, there's something to be said for repetition as well. I guess that's sort of along the lines of what you're saying, which is in marketing, we know somebody needs to see a message 7 times in order for them to actually act on it. That's sort of the average number of times that it takes. And that's why, companies run multiple commercials and have billboards and all that kind of stuff. And that's why you tell me you love me exactly 7 times a day.
Exactly. And so, the more time somebody sees something, the more likely it is that it's going to, maybe the first time it won't catch their attention, but maybe the 6th or 7th time it will.
When we were at the protest, last time I went without you, we had 4 or 5 different older white males drive by or park nearby and yell, "All lives matter, white lives matter." One actually yelled "white power." We had one guy give the middle finger, and I think 3 of them had kids in the car. And I think that's one of the important things to think about and consider is that those kids that are with those parents, they're growing up in this new age of information and technology where, when they're teenagers, they're not going to be sitting there saying, "Hey, Dad, what's your opinion on stuff?" They're going to get on Twitter, and they're going to get on Facebook, and they're going to get on TikToks. And thankfully, all that culture is going the right direction. You have so many people there that are, like I said, repetition, like we just talked about, keep on arguing because you're going to have all these young people that are seeing this, and these young people are going to outlive all these old racist white dudes. And when they get older, their kids are going to be the ones voting and changing the world. And I think that as far as social media goes, it's in a very good place, and people need to put even more stock in the fact that their social media is being seen by people who might not particularly be saying, oh, hey, that's a really good point. I'm changing my opinion. But they are seeing it, and they are changing, even if you don't see it.
And I think the point of the youth is a really good one as well. It was one of the things I was talking about with Hannigan, who's the 14-year-old daughter that we have. And she's pretty passionate about Black Lives Matter. She's passionate about gay rights. She's passionate about trans rights. She's passionate
about all the right things.
She's passionate about all the right things. And she's been talking about how she's been in conversations with adults where she's had to step up and say, I don't agree with you. And, here's why. And I'm just so proud of her. And, I don't think that she's unique is what I want to say. I think that there's a lot of people of her generation that are more willing maybe than I was, I can say, to stand up against an adult and say, you know what, I think your opinion is wrong. Yeah. And here's why I think it's wrong. And I think you need to be a little more open-minded. And, maybe consider that some of the opinions you have are incorrect. And I told her I was so proud of her for just standing up and speaking her mind, because I think teenagers and kids have a lot of important things to say. And I think sometimes as adults, we dismiss that.
We need to get a bunch of kids here and be like, yo, how you feeling?
I think you would get a very different answer. I mean,
yo, kid, how you doing?
It's definitely anecdotal, but I think that if you asked kids' opinions of things, especially when it comes to human rights, you would get very different answers than you would get from a group of 40-year-olds or a group of 60-year-olds.
Absolutely. Oh, my goodness. I mean, and it's, when these older white men were going through and developing who they are today, they weren't waking up every day and seeing videos of police brutality that you cannot deny is happening. And I'm happy that this generation, if that's what you're supposed to call them. I don't know all the Gen Zs and Gen X and Pokemon XYs and all that. Like, they will grow up on information being proven. You cannot deny the things that you can see these days. And I love it. I'm glad that that's where we're heading. I know we want the change now. We want a new world now. And we're getting there, but I am very optimistic about the future. This is Two Better Halves. In this podcast, we discuss a topic for 15 minutes each. Do we have a timer? Do you have a timer?
I do have a timer.
Do you have a timer? Okay. 15 minutes each. Each 15 minutes will be led by one of us. My better half, Sarah,
hello.
will lead the... hello. We'll lead the first half. I'll lead the second half. Whatever we want to talk about, we have to talk about. Has to be discussed. We can mute each other's microphones. We can get mad at each other if we want. Grr. And our topic of this episode is Black Lives Matter, as you know, because we just talked about it for like 20 minutes. But we didn't specifically talk about Black Lives Matter. We talked about the whole
human rights
and injustices and how we're looking. So, what you drinking over there?
I have some cherry whiskey with some cherry limeade sparkling water, and it is very cherry, but it is delicious.
I have a Diet Dr. Pepper and cream soda.
Ooh.
And I had red wine, but
that sounds like a terrible combination.
Well, I'm going to get some more red wine before you start. So let everybody know what your butt looks like while I get more wine.
I don't think I can do that on a podcast.
Tell them, right.
I think that's going to be really difficult. It's brown and firm, and I do a lot of roller derby. Well, I used to do a lot of roller derby, and we cut grass today, and I walk around and do the squats, so it's nice and firm. I can't talk about my butt for this long. You realize that, right? Well, I'm sorry. I don't know what you want me to do about that.
Cool. Just don't talk at all.
I'm sorry.
Jeez Louise. I should have said, hey, talk about something I did wrong once, and you would still be going on.
Well, you got to give me a good topic. You could have talked about my butt for 10 minutes.
Oh, I could have. Way longer than 10 minutes. 10 inches, if you know what I mean. Definitely not 10 inches. So whenever you're ready, start your little timey-wimey, and we will discuss what you want to talk about.
All right. So,
did you start the timer?
I did start the timer.
Oh, fudge. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So, I think that you sort of briefly touched on this, but, I think that I have witnessed you being much more passionate in the last few weeks than I have seen you been in the past when it comes to Black Lives Matter or the rights for Black Americans. And so I'm just curious, what was it about this time, this moment that really made you go, you know what? I want to go to those protests. I want to stand up. I want to be donating to these causes because I'm really passionate about it. And so I was just curious as to what the difference was this time versus, because unfortunately, this is not the first time. There have been very clear videos documenting police brutality on unarmed, unconfrontational Black Americans.
If you had access to my personal Facebook and you were to go back, 7-8 years, I was really big on police brutality being a thing. I don't know if you remember it.
I don't.
I was, maybe before we got together, I was posting videos constantly, talking about recording the police. I joined a internet group about it that just kept them accountable, but it was not, at that point, it was not at all aimed at because they are racist. It was just cops are horrible. Here's all the reasons why. Like when Scotland started learning things, I used to tell her not to talk to police officers. Anytime you've been pulled over and I've had a phone, I've recorded it.
You absolutely have recorded it.
Every single time. Like, I've always understood that. That's always existed. Police are not to be trusted. That's been a major thing that I have believed for a long time. But as far as injustice goes, I've always been really, really big into the LGBTQ plus thing. I've always had a soft spot for that and injustice with that. I mean, we've been donating to the PFLAG organization for 2 or 3 years now.
Yep, that's right.
2 or 3 years now. They're both right. So 5 years.
I mean,
maybe 3. Maybe
I
this
would
is the
say
third.
3. Yeah.
I'll go to the Pride events. I don't think now it matters that I would say I'm bisexual, but I'm bisexual because now I'm just Sarah sexual, and that's about it. Now I'm like barely sexual because my penis is just gone.
I mean, it's still there.
It's still there. Doesn't work as great as it used to, y'all, but it's still there. But I mean, I went to the first Pride parade when I was 19, 20, probably. Gone almost every year since. So I always had an issue with cops, and I always had a big support for the gay community. So that part of me always existed. And I think this time around, with that, these things always been a big deal to me, and wanted to find ways to fight it. Honestly, if it would have just been, here's this video of George Floyd, some people are mad, but it didn't become as big a deal was, I would have been upset for it. But once it became where everyone was talking about it, I mean, maybe it sounds bad, but I started caring more when everyone started talking. When people celebrities, I say celebrities, wrestling figures, sports athletes. I still follow most of the big Buddhists, I don't know what you call them, leaders, but the big people in Buddhism that talk. I follow all these people on YouTube and Twitter. And once I saw all these people that I get influenced by and I listen to, once they were bringing it up, like, okay, this is something we need to pay more attention to, I started paying more attention to it. I sat down and I watched the entire video. And then after that, it was just completely, I was all in for it.
Yeah, so I think that this time more than any other, and, I'm curious as to what the tipping point was. I don't know if it's just been so many so close together, but it very much became, if you don't have an opinion, that's as bad as not coming down on a side. Like, you need to decide which side of history you want to be on here and what your stand is going to be, and you need to say something, because staying silent just became really almost a non-option. And so I definitely knew which side I wanted to say that I was on. I've always definitely supported equality across the board and very much have been concerned for human rights. But I think that there was something about this moment that it really became, you have to pick a side. You can't be ambivalent anymore. And I think I was ambivalent for far too long. I knew what I wanted to do personally in my own life and how I was going to interact with people personally in my own life. But to actually take the step towards trying to make a change in the world at large beyond my own little sphere of influence, something about this just catapulted into the point where it was like, you have to make a stand and start moving in that direction. You can't just stay in the middle anymore. And
I think that for a lot of people, whether they want to say it or not, that it did have to do with the fact that everyone was talking about it. I mean, you have those things all the time. If I say JonBenet Ramsey, everyone knows who I'm talking about.
Yep.
She is not the first and only white girl child that's died. I mean, it's just, I know we get really mad at the media and people talk about the media being unfair and they control the stories. I think they played a large part in it in a good way where they understood that this was a big deal. I mean, even people that I know, because like I said, I've posted and made it public that I don't support the police for a long time. Those people that normally would argue and say, well, we don't know the whole story. This video doesn't make sense. Even those kinds of people, almost everyone was saying, yeah, these are bad cops and they should not have done it. It'll be hard to find someone specifically talking about George Floyd incident and saying, oh, what they did was justified. I don't see that. What the racists are doing are just finding a way to change the conversation. So they're saying, oh yeah, George Floyd, that was terrible. Those were bad cops. But white privilege is not a thing and the police are good and we need to keep the police. You've seen a little bit of people talking about him having drugs in his system or something like that, but even for the people that support the police and don't believe that racism's an issue, even they, for this story, were like, look, you can watch for almost, it might be 30 minutes, a guy being murdered by cops who don't care. Yeah. Everybody understood that what was happening.
I would agree. And people definitely deflect. Yeah, definitely deflect the conversation to something else, something where they feel they can win the argument as opposed to staying on the point that they know that they just can't win. I think the thing about police officers is that any profession where somebody is going to be in charge of somebody else and being able to order somebody else around is going to attract people who like to abuse that power. I mean, it's going to attract the good people too.
Are you admitting as a former teacher that you became a teacher to abuse your power?
Again, I'm not saying that all people who are attracted to that role are, but I'm saying when you have a role that's going to have authority, it is going to attract people that will be more prone to abuse that power. It will. And the problem is that as human beings, we want to protect our own. And so our order is to defend those that are close to us, our friends, our family. You know, we want to stand by them. We want to protect them. And so what happens is you have the term that everybody likes to throw around with, oh, those few bad apples. But you have those few bad apples that are pulled into this organization because they're attracted to the ability that they can leverage their power over others. And you combine that with the fact that the majority of the rest of the organization wants to protect their own. And it winds up with these things where people conceal things and people hide stories. And so it exacerbates and it spreads to the point where it becomes a much more systemic issue than can be just dealt with by, oh, well, we fire this one person because they're the bad one in the group. It becomes more insidious than that. And it's much harder to handle than just one cop that you can point to in one video.
Yeah, I think, was there a question or?
There wasn't. I was just making a statement on that. So I think we've talked a lot about that. The next thing I had on here is...
Damn, I don't get to talk bad about cops. All right. Sure, 15 minutes.
The next thing I've seen is on Facebook, and we've talked a lot about social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
TikTok.
And we talked a little bit already about the fact
Tinder.
That this has been an argument where you have to pick a side. And if you don't pick a side, it's almost worse.
I don't agree with that.
Than picking a side.
But yes, you have talked about that.
Well, if you look at the way that companies who have come out and publicly said
yes,
either Black Lives Matter or didn't say anything or said all lives matter, you look at, and there's thousands of comments on those feeds, and there's people saying that they're not going to purchase from companies anymore. And
I still know people personally who have not taken signs.
Okay, well, yeah. So, and I mean,
yes.
Yeah. As far as companies go,
I think that's okay. Just so we're clear, Sarah thinks that you have to pick a side. I think. Well, I think you should pick a side internally, but I don't think just because social media is everyone talking about everything they feel all the time, you can just, like I said earlier, just shut up and listen and read. You don't have to make it vocal which side you pick. Go ahead, Sarah.
But although
you should, don't be a fucker.
As far as companies go, they've really been put. I mean, every company I think felt the need to come out with some sort of statement in some way, whether it was on social media, whether it was through a commercial, whether it was on a billboard. I've seen billboards. I mean, companies felt the need to take a stand. I think not just for their customers, but for their employees as well, that they were coming out and really taking a stand in terms of where they sat. And I've seen a lot of backlash against those companies. And so what's your personal feeling on that? If there was a company that you enjoyed, let's say WWE, if WWE had come out and, said all lives matter, would that have changed your opinion of them as a company? Would it have led you to say something to them? Would it have led you to not follow them or not purchase from them anymore? Or, would you not want to work for a company that had said something like that?
We're just going to stick with WWE?
Sure.
Okay. WWE, no. Because it is a company that is designed in a way of you have one man calling all the shots. That's Vince McMahon. He is a big supporter of Donald Trump, gives Donald Trump a lot of money. But he also allows a platform for everybody within his company to, within reason. I mean, he's not like, hey, go in there and just cuss all the time. They're all given the freedom and the platform to make their voices heard. And if you go and you look at the WWE superstars, look at me saying superstars instead of wrestlers, you will see just, it is flooded. There is one wrestler on the WWE roster who came out and said, all lives matter, white lives matter, and made really bad comments, and he has not been on TV since. Every other one that has been vocal has said Black Lives Matter, we got to make a change, stuff like that. Randy Orton, he posted, I think over the weekend, that originally he was saying all lives matter, but when he shut up and he listened and he learned, he has changed his opinion on it, and he believes that you should be saying Black Lives Matter. So with things like that, where you have the employees of this company being allowed to come out and say these things, there's no sort of consequences for that. No, I would not stop supporting the company. If the people within it I felt were being forced to act a certain way, like if Vince McMahon told them, you're not allowed to say Black Lives Matter and you have to all say White Lives Matter, something like that, absolutely. But that's not what's happening all with WWE.
No, but I think that's more of what I was getting at was, what would be the line in the sand for you where you would actually turn away from a company. And so
if the employees are being punished and they are coming out and they're saying we are being told we have to believe this way by the higher ups, I would absolutely have a problem with it. And then I would stop supporting that company.
Okay. I think that's
how I personally feel. I think, most major companies are ran by an asshole. I can't think of many that aren't, but it's the people. Because a company is not one person. It is a group of people.
No, that is a very fair point.
And I've always felt like that.
I have not specifically.
I don't like the Chick-fil-A stuff that happens at the top of it, but I think one of our friends on Facebook posted a list of the top donors to Donald Trump, and like the Atlanta Braves, the guy who owns the Atlanta Braves was really high up on there. Okay, well, I wish that he would find better things to do with his money, but again, I follow almost every Braves player on Instagram, and they are able to use their platforms and make their voices to say Black Lives Matter. So I'm not about to be like, yeah, well, screw you for having a job. And that's me, and I understand the argument that they are just companies, and they are just sports teams, and they are just TV shows, and you can drop them. But me personally, I see the companies as a whole of the people, but I completely understand if people are more comfortable dropping them to make a statement.
No, and I definitely understand the point of if they're... Oh, well, we're out of time, so
if they're what?
I'm not allowed to say.
If they're what?
Not allowed to say.
Never, ever, ever. All right, let me know when my 15 minutes begins.
Oh, it's going.
What? You didn't let me know.
I just did.
All right, we're jumping in the way, way back machine. I want to talk about the moment that you realized racism existed in the world. That you realized, not from a book, not from reading about history or something, but something personal that happened in your life where you realized the world is kind of fucked up when it comes to judging people by their color.
So, I think
A needle pulling thread.
I've been very lucky for a couple of reasons.
White privilege.
Well, yes. One, that I have incredibly... I have parents who have taught me to appreciate all human life and to really be supportive of human rights in general. And I'm very, very grateful for that. The other thing that I can say is when I was young, probably kindergarten through third grade, the neighborhood that I lived in, there was 1 million kids and everybody would go out in the street and we'd all play together. But there was 3 of us in particular that were like the 3 amigos, thick as thieves. It was always the 3 of us together all the time. And the other 2 girls that were in this little trio with me were both black. And so as a young kid, and probably wrongfully so in my part in hindsight, I didn't ever look at them as any different from me. They were exactly the same. And I wish now, knowing what I do, I could have learned more about how their experience was different from mine. But being kids, being, 5, 6, 7 years old, that we didn't talk about stuff like that. We, talked about our bicycles and running down the street and cute boys and
boys, butts,
all of that kind of stuff. And so it was just a non-issue. So it didn't really occur to me that anybody looked at anybody as any differently because of the color of their skin when I was young at that age. When I got a little bit older, the main way I saw racism first was actually with Hispanics. There was, where I grew up outside of Chicago, there was an increasing number of immigrants coming from Mexico and South America because there was a lot of factory jobs that were around there. And there was a large amount of racism that I witnessed from the teachers, from the administration, from fellow students to these new people coming into our school who hadn't been there before. Because they didn't speak English and because their skin was brown. So that was the first really instance of just racism in general that I remember seeing. When it comes to specifically racism as it goes with Black people and really, people who have lived in our country for hundreds of years, watching Rodney King on TV. And again, I mean, it's the same thing that's happening now. And it's like you were talking about the kids of today, seeing it and witnessing it and actually seeing that video footage and realizing that there are people in this world that would hurt somebody else for really no provocation at all. And that was the first time that I really understood that
How old were
was
you?
An issue. I don't remember, but I
Do you remember?
I still lived with my parents.
I was going to ask, do you remember your parents talking to you about it?
No.
Okay.
Because
you talked about how great your parents were with all that. And, just to think all the young people who did see that and they had parents who just poisoned their mind to think that some of that was all right.
Absolutely. I'm certain that happened. We didn't really talk about it at all. It wasn't an issue. And I think that my parents probably suffered from the same thing that I did at that time. I don't think they
just
still
that
do.
They didn't.
Just that they didn't think about it as any different at all. And so the reality that the world really is, like, I don't think I realized I had white privilege until very recently. Because I had looked at, every person, as equal to me. And it didn't occur to me that their life experience was so fundamentally different from every level, from the time that they're born to the schools that they attend to the neighborhoods that they can live in. And that is a domino effect that affects the next step and the next step and the next step. And it just escalates and spirals to the point where, yes, I grew up in a trailer park and, yes, my parents didn't go to college. So I don't necessarily have the privilege that like a Donald Trump or the wealthy elite have. But there is a privilege that I had just from the fact that I didn't have to combat with my skin color that I don't think I appreciated until, unfortunately, fairly recently.
No, I completely get that. And that's the reason that when people hear white privilege and when white people hear white privilege and they get defensive, I'm not immediately mad at them. Because if you hear anyone tell you that you have privilege and you feel like, oh, my journey was hard, I have a really hard life, you're going to get defensive about that. And I understand people who get defensive about it or just ignore it. Like you just said, still very, very recently. I'm sure you've heard the phrase white privilege before and you just shrugged it off. I did, because people get defensive and we all think, like you said, we weren't born with a silver spoon and had a life. We had to work for stuff that we got. I had to be attractive and flirt with you in order to get the success I had. You had to go to college like 19 times. Very, very similar. So I don't get mad at people when they say white privilege doesn't exist. I get mad at people when it is explained to them. Because when it's explained to you, how the hell can you then argue it? It's so crystal clear. It makes complete sense. And that's why I keep saying, if you don't get things, just shut up.
And there's a difference.
Just listen and learn.
Having an opinion and disregarding facts, right? So there is so much evidence that shows that there is a disproportionate playing field when you start off, if you are white or not, in terms of the neighborhood you can live in, the schools you get to go to. And yes, not everyone, right? There's always anomalies. There's always people that fall outside of those parameters. But if you look at the overall percentages, regardless of whose statistics you look at, you will see the same things time and time and time again, which is that, people that are not white are from predominantly poor neighborhoods. They go to predominantly, schools that have poorer scores in their testing. They're less likely to go to college. They're more likely to get arrested. They're more likely to spend their lifetime in jail. And you can't argue with that. Those are not opinions. Those are facts.
So, and people are going to hear that, and instead of being like, oh, okay. And I understand, if you're someone who believes white privilege doesn't exist, you're going to hear that, and you're going to be like, oh, whatever, she's wrong. I'm going to tell her she's wrong. Don't. Look it up. Learn. Just educate yourself. You got to educate yourself and learn things. Somebody that I never would have expected to admit that white privilege existed at Black Lives Matter and say that. I don't want to say their name now. They came out and they changed their mind. Look at the freaking world and the millions of people that are saying white privilege is real. Black Lives Matters needs to be what we're saying. Police brutality is a problem. It's a lot of people. And the reason it's a lot of people is because they learn and they understand it now. There's just so many people that are going to be on the wrong side of history. And the ones that aren't listening and learning, fuck them. I'm really mad at them.
Well, and I mean, it's important. I think that, you said it earlier. It's important to be able to look at the evidence and say, I was wrong. And
God, I've been wrong about so many things.
And that's fine. We're all humans. We all make mistakes. We're all biased to innately have our worldview filtered through our lens and to believe that that's the same for everyone. I
remember, and this is not Black Lives Matter specifically, but just because I don't want to be like calling people out, I used to have a problem with the whole transgender thing. I'm not proud of it, obviously. But up until probably 10, 11 years ago, maybe, it all bothered me. But I had a conversation with someone else who felt the same way. And this was at the time where the bathroom bill was it was one of the early ones, not when North Carolina had the whole thing, or South Carolina, whichever one it was. But it was when just the conversation started existing. And everyone was arguing, oh, well, they're going to pretend like they're transgender to go into the bathrooms and molest children. And that was like the thing. And for whatever reason, instead of continuing saying, oh, transgender doesn't make sense, I don't get it, I decided to actually read about it. That crime doesn't exist. It's something that is just made up out of thin air to scare people into believing that transgenders shouldn't be given regular human rights. And it just kept being talked about and talked about and talked about. The transgenders are going to use the bathroom bill to molest children. It's just a pretend crime. It's like, oh, we should outlaw frogs because they're going to come in our house and blow cigarette smoke into our faces. That doesn't fucking happen. Can a frog come in a house and suck on a cigarette? I think so. Yeah, right? Sure, maybe that's not the perfect example. But it's someone took the worst case scenario and pretended like it was an actual threat in order to make an argument. And when I was arguing with the person who was talking about it as this is a thing that's going to happen if transgenders get rights, I was like, man, fuck this. What side am I on here? I need to rethink this. And I rethought it. And like I said, I'm still learning about it. But just fucking learn things, guys. You don't have to be on the side. All right. Dan, what else are we talking about? Have you ever had a in-depth one-on-one conversation with a racist? Someone that you know was a racist?
I've definitely had conversations with people that I know are racist and have flat out said as much. I mean, not said I am a racist, but said things that clearly could not be interpreted in any other way. I have not had a conversation with them about their racism. And again, I think that's one of the shortcomings that I've had, right? I thought that it was enough that I could just say, well, I know that I treat all people equally, give everyone a chance. Don't let any sort of innate prejudice that exists, because it does. Everyone innately feels more comfortable with the people that are most like them. It is our biological wiring. The question is, can you take a pause and say, okay, that doesn't make sense, and I need to take a moment to actually let this situation be in this moment and let me make a decision based on that individual person as opposed to this sort of biological impulse that's there. But I thought that was enough, that I just personally in my own life knew that I took the time to stop and consider that each person is unique, and that just because I've met one person that is a certain way doesn't mean another one's going to be a certain way just because they have similarities in their appearance or sexuality or anything.
I think that's very fair. And like I talked about, me being a big supporter of the LGBTQ pluses, like I don't know if, because I was really religious when I started getting into it, I would leave church early to get there for the parades on time. And that doesn't usually coincide and make sense. And I don't know if I wouldn't have felt that I was going through bisexual feelings, I don't know if I would have done that. And that's what you're saying about, it's people that are like you. I don't know if I would have. And that's scary to think about.
Well, and I think the thing is that for a long time, I thought that was enough, right? I know in my own little world that I'm doing my piece. I'm doing my part. I'm not letting anything that might innately be there keep me from making friends who have a different.
I know I'm running out of time. So do you feel like it is now your responsibility, if you know that person is racist, to seek them out and talk to them about it?
Yes.
Are you planning on doing that?
Yes.
Is that person still a racist?
They are. They don't live here anymore, so it'll be harder to seek them out. But
and what would you say? I don't know who this person's going to be. This is new to me. I don't want you to drop names of someone and then somebody hear it. But what is your attack plan?
It's not so much to go after them. Just
stab them in the knee.
It's the call out culture, right? It's if they say something in my presence that is racist, to not just sort of brush that off and go, well, I don't personally do those things, so they may say something just to me that's racist, not to someone else. I always defended others. If she would have said something racist to another person,
we're getting there.
I absolutely would have defended that other person. But I absolutely was guilty of, she said it, I don't want to start a bunch of drama. I'm just going to ignore it and let it go because I can't change her mind. And so I definitely now feel that I need to stand up and say, you know what, that joke's not appropriate, that comment's not appropriate, those are not the kinds of things you need to say. Here is why, here's all the reasons that, racism is an issue and that you need to be taking it seriously and not dismiss it. And that is definitely something that I am ashamed to say that I have just recently realized, that it's not enough to just not be racist. You have to actively promote anti-racism across the board.
Who do you think, and this is hypothetical, I'll probably run out of time. Let's say that the protest, Black Lives Matter, makes a big difference. Who do you think is next to have this sort of the entire world come together to try to make things right for this type of person? Whether it be Hispanics, whether it be sexuality.
Yeah.
Whether it be going after politicians.
I
What do you think? This is not what you predict the next revolution would be, but damn it, that's such a good question too. I didn't write that down as an idea.
Sorry, baby.
It came to me. God damn. Oh,
if enough people post comments, I'll answer the question in comments.
All right, if you guys want a Black Lives Matter 2, let us know. Because I would love to know. And I promise I won't ask her this. I am going to ask her who the person is that she believes is a racist. Because I don't know who this is. I know people that I believe are racist, but it wasn't asked of me. So I'm curious as to who it's going to be. Were they part of our wedding?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I did have an opinion or a thought. That's probably someone I don't even know, is it?
You know, but not.
Lame. All right. What would you like to put on the poll for next episode?
Gosh, I don't.
Talked about a lot.
We did.
Talked about a lot.
So one of the things I've been educating myself a lot on, because it's one of the things that I've realized is that I just don't understand a lot about the systemic causes of racism, and I tried to touch on them a little bit here. I don't know nearly as much as I'd like to know. Certainly not as much as there is to know. But
we can't talk about racism again.
I understand that. So what I want to look at more is our justice system more broadly, because I think that a lot of with the police brutality, with those kinds of things, there's a lot that I've been learning about just how our prison system works from the time that you're arrested till the time you're processed. You go through the trial process, you actually get in jail, the appeals process, and all of that. So sort of our prison system.
That's really serious.
Yeah, but we might have diverse opinions, which I thought was part of the point.
No, it's great. I know we've talked about the death penalty and where we both fall on it. Unless you've changed your mind. You're very firm on the no death penalties.
Yeah, I'm definitely very firm on the no death penalty. I've been researching the Innocence Project.
Whoa! And no one's voted. Nobody wants to hear that shit. Unless they vote for it. Okay. In which case, I didn't say what my opinion was on it. So let's chill. What did we talk about that was really stupid in this episode that we can I can put on the poll? What was really stupid? We talked about me. I'm pretty stupid.
You're not stupid, baby. You're gorgeous.
We didn't talk about bananas, did we?
No.
Damn, I wish we could do a whole episode on
bananas. About penis size.
Yeah, who did?
You did.
I have never discussed that. Oh, in that first bit, what did we talk about? Oh man, some good stuff. Chastity and Sebastian. I guess there's nothing there, is there?
Porn.
You
said she was your porn character.
I already put porn on the poll and it did not get voted for.
I forgot that you'd put it on there.
Oh, yes, I did. And nobody wanted me to talk about it. Let's talk about... Ew, gross. I'm ugly. Bleh. I want to talk about... God, everything I can think of is serious. Fine. We'll talk about homosexuality. That'll be mine.
Okay.
So the next episode is either going to be about the prison system, a big old cage and a key, or me and penises flapping around everywhere like little penis birds.
I feel like homosexuality is bigger than that, but okay.
Oh, my 15 minutes will be stories about me and flappy ass penises. Flappy ass penises. That was really funny. This was a really long episode already, so we will not have a special game at the end because we're coming up on the 60 minutes. Thank you for joining us. Any last words?
No, thanks.
For your life?
Thanks for sticking around for this, and like you said, maybe it will make a difference to somebody, and I hope so, and I definitely have learned a lot in the last few weeks, and I hope that everyone else out there is doing the same.